your motivation sucks. Now, hear me out. I fall victim to these as well. There are 3 common mistakes people make when trying to find that little spark they call motivation. So, what are they, you might ask? First of all, we need to understand there are 2 different types of motives for a human being. External, meaning that you are driven by forces outside of yourself, and internal, being driven by forces from within you. And you'll see in just a moment here that each of these mistakes often are driven from external reasons. It really makes you wonder what the key to internal motivation is. I'll get to that in just a moment, so stick around. So, mistake number 1, don't rely on charisma. Now, what do I mean by charisma? The best and simplest way that I can explain this is by example. And you'll most likely see it every day. That's right, your typical motivational speeches. Take example, the well-known line, "Just do it," by Nike. Can anyone really just do it? There are a whole lot more factors that come into play when trying to accomplish something. Take example, you're trying to build a rocket ship, and you have 0 knowledge whatsoever on how to build rockets. Now imagine you're put into a room and told to just fix it. Now obviously there's a huge knowledge gap that is preventing you from fixing this rocket ship, and it would probably take years just to figure out. So just fix it? Just do it? Doesn't really work out, does it? But one thing to note when listening to advice, I think it's very important to decipher what it means to be motivated by their presentation rather than if the facts they're speaking are true or not, or even applicable. You can have one person in the room that is so confident at selling you a juicy fast food hamburger. Is it good for you though? Maybe not, but the confidence and charisma allows you to believe that you do need it. This can be applied to any advice as seen in the previous example. There may not be one perfect piece of advice for everyone, because we all live very different lives and are at different stages. So make sure you gather different points of views before letting one line have such a large influence and motivation on your specific life. Mistake number 2. Don't use power. Raw power, painfully applied, may move bodies, it may even get people to act in new ways, but it rarely moves hearts and minds. Hearts and minds are changed through expanded understanding and new realizations. This is a quote that I got from a book called Crucial Accountability, where it's actually about holding other people accountable and how to motivate others. And in one of the chapters, it actually goes over these 3 common mistakes of motivating others. But what happens when we try to motivate ourselves? The same 3 mistakes can be applied, as well as the solution. We are all human, so why do us humans often refer to the typical force of motivation by power? The one where you punish yourself with your own deepest insecurities. If I don't make this dinner reservation, the company is going to believe that I'm lazy and that I'm a failure and that they will fire me. We can often hear this from others as well, in attempts to motivate us. If you don't finish this project, you'll be fired. We often tell ourselves the story that others just don't have any empathy. And the same goes for telling that story to ourselves. The use of power actually stems from your own thoughts, and that itself is a problem. Yes, the other person may not be doing anything, but that creates anger within us, and we feel compelled to use such harsh consequences, even when it's with ourselves. This can kill your own self-confidence and respect. And once you stop respecting yourself, causing even more resistance within yourself. You don't feel safe with yourself or your thoughts anymore. When people produce solely out of fear, once fear is removed, so is the motivation to continue to follow orders. This fear are those harsh consequences that you put on yourself. When you produce so much fear onto yourself just to get something done, well, that's just called anxiety. So be careful what real consequences are versus the ones that you may just make up in your head just to get you moving. And the third mistake is external rewards. The last one, being the most obvious for external motivation, is external rewards. When using external or physical rewards, like buying yourself a watch, or when your parents tried to motivate you with a piece of chocolate to do your chores, you completely lose the actual reason why you are completing a task. Even though there is so much more satisfaction that comes when you truly accomplish something for yourself rather than for a shiny object. A large example I see daily is money. The purpose of making money isn't because of just the big and fancy house and all these nice cars, just so you can get all this external praise. For me at least, the point of making money is so that I have more freedom because I genuinely enjoy the work that I'm doing. Now, the external things may be a result as me making money, but my internal reason for freedom and passion are much larger than any external reason. Now, I'm not saying you should never use these forms of motivation, but there is still one strategy that will last far longer than these 3 mistakes and help build that golden internal motivation rather than external. The solution? Natural consequences. Now, consequences don't have to be punishments. A consequence is simply a result from any given input, whether that be positive or negative, which is why we can use natural consequences as a tool to be motivated. When you attach it to your own emotions, that becomes an internal reason. Example, a negative natural consequence is that if you eat really poorly, you're gonna probably end up sick or in the hospital later down in life. And I don't think anybody wants that. Another natural consequence that's positive is that if you treat your spouse right, you listen, you understand, you accept, they are more likely to stay with you longer. If you have kids or a kid like me, an example of natural consequence is that when you don't get enough sleep, you become angry and irritated. And that applies to adults too. If you don't eat, you'll starve. If you don't sleep, you'll most likely go insane. These are all natural consequences, whether the results are positive or negative. The point here is that you should be choosing to do things that will create these more positive natural consequences in your life, not just because somebody said so. The only person you can truly change and motivate is yourself. No external thing will be sustainable enough for the long game. Short term, maybe, but like I said before, it will only give you a false sense of reason to do something. So if you've sat down with yourself and laid out the natural consequences of your current actions and where they're going to take you, now it's up for you to decide which of those actions are bringing you in the right direction and stay committed to those new actions and habits. But how can you be sure that you'll stay committed? There are a few accountability tools that I'd like to share with you that may help you along the way. Number 1. Follow-up times and due dates. Parkinson's law states that the work will fill to the time that you allow it. For instance, if you already have your intrinsic reasoning for a goal, when do you want to accomplish it by? Do you need to make gradual steps towards it? Maybe you'll set the first step for every single day for just 1 week. And then by week 2, you move on to step 2. Write it out and plan your week or day accordingly. Remove distractions that may fall in your way and get to work. Something I've recently just bought is a planner. I've literally written out for every single day what exact project I'm going to be working on, making sure that I'm allocating enough time in advance to get it done, but in a timely manner. Like, let's say I have a project that's due in 1 or 2 weeks. I'm going to start working on it now. Which leads me to another similar accountability tool, and that is a daily journal. This is a little bit different than a planner because it's not a calendar, it's just you writing. But at the end of each day, you can write out what exactly did you accomplish and how did this make you feel. This will further empower and gain you clarity on what's working and what's not, keeping the internal reasons at the top of your mind. The third tool is an accountability buddy. And I know we shouldn't always rely on extrinsic forces to keep us moving, but think of them as a mirror. They're simply copying your actions and telling it to you straight, and making sure that this is a good partner, not just setting in fears and lies to get you moving. But if the person is honest and respectful, it will allow you to truly reflect and see what you're doing. From there, you can determine if it's the right or wrong thing to continue. If you want to get personal too, you can also tell them what your internal reasons are, and when times get tough, they can be there to remind you of that. If you've gotten this far, this is a sign that maybe this is something that you truly do want to follow through on. Make sure you find more internal reasons than external. Write them out, and when times get hard, remind yourself of the progress that you're making and the feeling it gives you after you've finished your workout, or the motivation and empowerment you feel once you've finished a large project. You may even feel passionate about it. Those are the intrinsic feelings that you should be aiming for. And it won't be sunshine all the time, but don't forget about the times that it did feel like sunshine and rainbows. If you can stay this long through a video, you can use that same energy of commitment to get through your goals one day at a time. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.